the interview.
Spray
It's like,
tan.
damn. Damn, man.
We could
By
spit
the end of the interview, he looked great.
right on. All right. So we are live, Todd Pack. I guess episode 4.
Yeah.
Guessing.
I think, yeah. If last week was 3, then this week has got to be 4.
It's kind of, if you carry the 9, man.
Right. There
Carry
we
the
go.
9,
There's
this
our
is-
two. There's our 2 viewers. They'll start coming up.
Yeah, right. So, yeah, episode 4, Metal Bros. We'll give people a few minutes to jump on board with us. I did actually run a, hey, John Fogel from Hannibal, Missouri. Good to have you on Metal Bros tonight. You,
Welcome, everybody.
me, and John Fogel. Evie, or Evie, good to have you. Steve, good to have you, man. From Chicago. Steve's from Chicago. Hope all is well out in the Windy City, brother. Let me make sure my volume is cool. Check, check. Test,
Sounds-
1, 2, 3.
Sounds good on this end, man.
All
What's happening, everybody?
Stan, good to see you, man. No Stans from the city. When you say the city, there's only one city. New York City.
St. Louis. Oh, damn.
Albuquerque.
Oklahoma.
Anchorage.
Oklahoma City, Oklahoma.
There's only one
Anchorage.
city.
He's from
Anchorage.
Anchorage. He's from Juneau. Juneau.
Jeff is with us. Jeff Poteet here from Rogers, Arkansas. Judy, good to have you. Shirley Lynn from Michigan. Thanks for joining us tonight. Judy said, recently in a bad accident, your life, you were saved. So good to hear that, Judy. Glad you are still with us. Rick Perry said, I wonder what tonight's topic could be.
Yeah. Who knows?
Who knows? I am going to start with a subject for Todd. He wasn't. I didn't.
This is let me just tell everybody the beer I'll be drinking before you get started.
The hell is that, dude?
That's a rogue dead guy beer.
Yeah.
It's a Malbec.
Cardenas said, what's your thoughts on Manowar with Mr. Badio? It's going to be badass. That was interesting. I didn't go too deep into that story, actually, but I saw them jamming together. I saw Joey jamming with
Oh, yeah?
MAB, as they say.
Yeah.
So I think that would be cool. I mean, that's tough. Michael, he is his own thing.
Right.
He's not a band guy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's not really a band guy, but, you know, he's mature. He's been around a long time, so he may be cool. But, the Joey from Manowar, they got their egos. So it'll be interesting to see. It's not the musicianship that's going to be at play here. It's going to be the egos, man.
Yeah. So, okay, we're talking about the double neck dude.
Yeah.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah.
Huh. That is an interesting, that's real interesting.
Yeah.
He used to play with Jim Gillette.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nitro.
Yeah, Lita
Jim
Ford's
Gillette.
old man.
Lita Ford's, yeah. And at one point, Jim Gillette moved to Texas in early 90s, like, 90, maybe 92, 93, right around there. And he got in touch with us. Me and my buddy, who I was jamming with at the time, he got in touch with us and came over and wrote some songs with us. And we did a 5-6 song demo with him.
Really?
Yeah, it was called Slumlord, because he had moved to Texas to he was helping his dad like redo all these apartments, and they were like Section 8 apartments. So he called it Slumlord because he was doing Section 8. And he came in and we wrote these songs, and he told me, he says, dude, I'm starting to see Lita Ford. And I was like, no shit, dude. And he goes, yeah, we've been kind of hanging out and dating and stuff. And we jammed with him for a couple of months. We went into Wayne Abney's studio, recorded that whole 5-6 song demo. He took the tape, literally took the tapes with him, and went and married Lita Ford like immediately right after that. He just bailed on us. Yeah. Got the music, bailed on us. and I saw him one more time when I was back in LA. He was playing a show with her at FM station, that same bar I told you that I was hanging out with Mike Inez from Alice in Chains and all that shit. That same place I used to hang out at. He played a gig there, and I came up to him, gave him a copy of the tape, the mixtape, and we bullshitted and stuff for a while. But yeah, he was actually a cool dude.
Yeah.
Now, singing motherfucker, man.
Now, didn't he do something also with Doug Marks for a while?
Well, I don't know if they did anything together, but I mean, Doug Marks had the metal,
okay, so so both MAB and Jim Gillette did stuff for Doug Marks's courses, right?
Probably. And then, yes, Doug Marks had his course, and then Jim had his vocal course that was just like it. Right. He did the exact. That's back when he had the massive, huge white hair.
Yes. Metal. So back on the Metal Method.
Metal Method. That's what it was.
Yeah. Yeah. Me and Doug were in contact for a while. He was following Metal Motivation for the longest time, and because that's where Metal Mike came from. Metal Mike was in Poland, and he was ordering those tapes.
Right.
What he could get a hold of from Doug Marks, and that's how he got started to playing. And but he told me, he goes, one of the things that Doug Marks would always say in his tapes is, besides playing, I want you to read motivational books. So Doug Marks originally had that blend of metal and motivation way back then. And speaking of Manowar, I would call them one of the original Metal Motivator type, because they sang very motivational stuff. Rick was saying here just a second ago that they should get Ross the Boss back in Manowar. Now, one of our best bros, Mark Lopes, sings for Ross the Boss.
Right on.
And I think Ross is having a good time with that. I'm not sure. I mean, it would be, I think, man, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
But
it might be like getting KK back in Priest.
Yeah. But, yeah. So, we, as I'm pouring bourbon,
nice.
I used to talk about the Manowar thing, because Manowar for me was always that great example of what's happened to America in terms of metal.
Yeah.
Why is it that Manowar can go over to Germany and play and headline and have 35,000 in attendance?
Right.
But struggle to get 3,500 in a venue here in the States.
Right.
And the thing that's always struck me about it is because Manowar's themes lyrically have always resonated more with a European audience.
Yes.
So when you look at American metal, for example, in the 2000s, Chimera, Lamb of God, Shadows Fall, they're not singing about gothic themes of knight and Viking and barbarian and all that kind of stuff. Because we're not like Europeans who walk down the street and look up on the hillside and see a castle.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not our history. It's
not
their
our history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
American metal bands don't have songs that have these like massive chants where the audience sings louder than the band. They just don't write songs like that, really. We don't write as anthemic as bands like that do.
Yeah, because a lot of them still have kings and queens.
Right.
You know what I mean? They still have they still sing in pubs. So the chanting and the singing together makes sense to them. Doesn't make sense to the dysfunctional, broken family. We're more singing about our pain than anything else, So it's we don't have that knight and chivalry and barbarian and king and all of these sorts of things in our bloodline. Yeah. So it doesn't come out in our music.
One of the few bands that even writes that way would be like Iced Earth, where they'll write, or Maiden, who's not obviously from America, but they'll write a little bit of history,
Yeah. It'll be a lot of American history, because
American
that dude,
history,
he got arrested on January 6th.
That's right. That's right. He's a patriot.
Right. But, and that's the nature of, that's why power metal seems to do better in Europe, because they just love that stuff.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Even bands
soccer chants, all that stuff.
Yeah. Soccer chants, even bands that have died off in America. they're kind of like has-beens can go over there and still draw an audience.
Yeah.
Older bands.
They're more metal in a lot of
Yeah.
ways over there.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
You
Just
know?
their whole culture is more metal. And I think it's always been maybe widely more accepted from the beginning over there.
Yeah.
It seems like,
Yeah.
Even the black metal and then all the crazy,
Yeah.
church burnings and all that stuff. Not that that was accepted over there, but it's just kind of their
Yeah.
culture,
Yeah. I mean, that's new album, right?
Right.
It started there first, and then came over here. We never really replicated that.
Mm-hmm. You know what I noticed when the Queen died, in England, just how many musicians all came out and said, felt so strongly about her.
Yeah.
Like, I just figured she's just the Queen. No one gives a damn. But no, they were, it was, it was people like Paul McCartney, guys in Sabbath, Ozzy, Mick Jagger, and I started thinking I go, man, these are just huge names, all just saying, man, you were, ever since I was a little kid, you were my queen. And I was like, I didn't really ever think about how much they admired her. I just kind of thought they thought more like we did. She's just kind of like there.
It's a figurehead.
For, just a figurehead. She's just there for.
Not
for
Sid Vicious.
Yeah, no.
He was like, she ain't no human being.
She ain't no human being.
Yeah, so that, as far as that goes, somebody asked again. We talked about this already, but asking our thoughts about the Pantera thing. And, at this point, I think
Mm-hmm. I think we can get into that a little bit later too. I got something. Having seen their first show, there's a little more to.
Yeah. We'll talk about that. But the one thing I did want to let me just finish welcoming some people here.
Yeah.
Of course, Sherry Pat, good to have you. Christy Ramirez, good to see you. Lester, Steve again. Alice, good to have you. See anybody else here? But good to have each and every one of you with us tonight on Metal Bros. I'm going to share something here and get some of Todd's thoughts. This was brought to my attention by my friend Leah McHenry, and because she and I worked a lot with music marketing, so helping bands do things online and not being completely reliant upon making albums, working with a label, and touring. This is something Devin Townsend said. He said it's almost impossible to make money on tour now. Which that's kind of the way things were. Is you were at the very least doing things on the road to try and make up for the fact that you didn't have album sales.
Right.
So, he's talking about how difficult it's been since COVID. So he said it's gotten way worse. Let me see if I can move this. He said it's gotten way worse. I don't think it's better at all, actually, because the costs of touring now with inflation and the cost of gasoline and diesel, plus over the course of the pandemic, we've lost a ton of really good venues. I'd say probably 50% of the workforce in touring has now left, because what's a guitar tech going to do for 2 years? You have to get a job, right? And so the ones that are remaining, not only are they already spoken for with other bands, but they're almost twice as expensive. I saw this thing about Live Nation the other day. They're taking 30% of merch sales from some of these venues. The costs of airlines have gone up. So artists, the ability to make money on tour is almost completely gone now, at least as an artist on my level. So yes, it's opened again, but it's 10 times as expensive. It's like, what do? Even little things like hotels are more expensive. The food at the hotels are more expensive. So at the end of it, you're touring for what? You're touring ultimately so you can present your work to the people who care about your work, and that's worth it to me. But I think for anybody to think that it's now easy again, you should investigate that, because I'm trying to set up tours for next year, and there's no way to keep them within cost. There's no way.
Yeah.
And so you go out there and like, well, we can't have this vehicle, we can't have that backline, we can't have this production, we can't have these lights. And then if you show up at a place and the audience comes, they're the show's not good. There's no lights. There's no production. So what do? I think a lot of musicians, their decision is like, well, I'll just stay home then and just create from home.
Yeah.
So that,
Mm-hmm.
that's exactly what, Leah had originally set up. She had, what you would basically do. Let me get this back to our thing. With like what she did, which was without touring, she was selling albums, selling merch, and all of that stuff without having to do any of that. And that's tempting for musicians who want to keep music alive. So if the remedy to what's happened with the music industry in general since Napster and then streaming, now you have this challenge of post-COVID with everything being so expensive, you're limited as to, what you can do production-wise.
Touring even before all this has always been a bitch for any kind of mid-tier and down level wise band. Even the openers who are, who've gone on tour with, more major acts who are they're touring in a van and, Wasp is touring in a tour bus. It's always been a bitch. It's always been hard to maintain. It's one of those you come home broke, and a lot of those bands, like you use Death Angel because talking to their singer when he told me last time I had a conversation with him, he goes, yeah, when I'm back home, I bartend.
Yeah.
That's what I do when I get home. They've got to figure it out, and they've been doing it for years. And obviously, they have enough to make a living, But even guys at that level have always had a hard time that being their sole job. So you can imagine anybody else who's new, like you said, or like the article said back in the day when you toured, you were touring to expose yourself to people, and then like Quiet Riot would go on tour. And that album they'd have no idea how their album was doing because it was the internet, blah, blah, blah. And their audiences would be getting bigger and they'd start getting things from their record company, and they'd finally get a check or something, and they were building an audience because the radio was playing them, MTV was playing them, and they were on tour and the tours were getting bigger and bigger and bigger. That was the point of it.
Right.
And now I can only imagine. Who was it? I think it was Anthrax who recently just canceled their European or most of their European tour because it was too expensive to go. So they said they'd go back to England, and that was about it. They were going to do that part of Europe, and that was almost it. They basically canceled everything else. And that was maybe just 2 or 3 weeks ago I read that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's, it's incredibly sad because you have to ask yourself, how long will bands continue to do this? How long will they consider it worth the effort?
Yeah.
I mean, especially with metal, because metal, well, the difference with metal is that most people do it for the love of the game.
Yes.
It's about the music itself. It's about exercising that kind of musical prowess.
I really thought the pandemic would change the way things would go. I thought that, someone would figure out better technology. I mean, not that they haven't figured it out, but they would start to make use of this technology where bands would just kind of set up in their home place and sell concerts,
Right.
just play their own shows in their own space and just, $20, $25 to sit at home and watch this. Cause we were all content for a while. We were watching local shows, Lava Cantina here, who does a lot of tribute bands and stuff, had a nice setup, and they had 2 or 3 cameras and they had a host and, and they were playing tribute bands. We were sitting right here at the very beginning of this and have no problem sitting in our living room, having a few drinks. And that was free, watching those shows. And I thought, this is the way concerts are going to go, especially if the pandemic had, kept going at the rate it was going.
Right.
And who knows, it may come back around or whatever. I just thought, I really thought it would change the game more so than it has, because, you can see that people are just dying to get out when you got a show like somebody like Wasp comes to town and they're selling out every show and overselling out in Dallas's, instance. But I kind of thought it would change, and maybe this will be what changes it. Maybe the economy being so shitty, and if it stays this way, for another 4 years or whatever, or 6, 2 more of this and then 4 more of the next guy who's in office. Maybe that'll be the thing that, people start to utilize technology a little more, and you can stay at home and watch, because, as it is, we bought tickets to Metallica, you know, and that place is basically, I don't know how close they are to being sold out, but that general admission area is already sold out.
Yeah.
There's just a handful of seats left, and that's 2 nights. So people are still want to go out and see certain bands. But as far as those, you know, bands like you know, the Bay Area thrash guys and all that stuff, you know, how much longer do they have? Even though they were packing them in too. There's still some of those shows, but if you're lesser band than that, trying to get a start, shit, forget it. You know, you got Devin Townsend saying it's too expensive for him, who's getting a decent paycheck. You can just imagine what the rest of us would be having to do. How we could. There's no way we could pull it off. We couldn't pull off little mini tours.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean there are necessities of mother of invention, right? So,
Right.
You know, there are end arounds. It's like people.
There's reach arounds.
There's reach arounds. The people may not have considered, for example, I mentioned Leah. So people may not have
Right.
considered her approach, you know, as a way of earning
Yes.
money as a musician, solo or
Mhm.
band or what have you. So it may be, you know, we're listening to people say you can't until somebody does it.
Right.
Until somebody creates a new method or a new something or
Right.
finds some end
Mhm.
around, whether it's through technology or what have you. And then all of a sudden everybody's like, oh, okay, this is the way. So
Right.
we'll try this.
Well, her method is much more. It doesn't even involve. She's not even interested in touring. So it's
not at all.
it's literally building your audience and fans all over the world. They're buying your product, and you may not have ever even heard of her, and she's making 6 figures off of her music, and you don't have a clue who she is because she's just found a niche.
Yep.
You know.
Yep.
Through all over the world.
Right, and that's the thing is that, you know, we because of social media, this is possible, and you know we all are protective of our privacy. We don't like the fact that, you know, maybe the internet is listening to us, or, you know, they know all this information about us. But from a marketer's perspective, it's really a gold mine because you want to be able to target your product, your service, your band, whatever you have, to the most ideal person for what it is you're offering. You know,
Right.
So I go out to my mailbox all the time. You probably do this all the time, where you get, you know, a bunch of direct mail that's got nothing to do with you.
Right.
You know, so for example, I eat the keto diet, so I'm not wolfing down pizza
Right.
all the time. So why would Papa John's or Domino's waste the money printing up a direct mail postcard with a special coupon offer and spend the mailing postage to mail it to my house? What's the point? I don't eat that.
Right.
So, but they don't know that, because if they're going to buy what they call a mailing list from a service, they're just going to give me homeowners in this zip code, whatever. But if Domino's or Papa John's knew, give me just the people who have bought pizza delivery in the last 30 days.
Right.
Then they wouldn't even bother going to me. And then someone who maybe who has a keto product, a special keto cookie or a keto whatever, and they wanted to target people in this particular zip code who just ate ketogenic food, then they would know who to target. So what Leah's doing is she's saying, because she sings a particular style of heavy metal, so she's able to target people who are interested in all the things culturally. Like she is like, I call her a heavy metal Enya, right? So it's kind of that real gothic, kind of new agey, you know, great female vocals, but with heavy metal. So she's like a heavy metal version of Enya. So it's really, really, it's a soundscape kind of music. And so what she does is she's targeting people who, you know, watch Game of Thrones, play Dungeons and Dragons, into The Hobbit, you know, into Irish lore and Vikings and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's very targeted.
So it's very, very targeted. So she's able to put her music videos in front of that audience, not put it and just spend a bunch of money on Facebook and have her videos go to people who like country music.
Yeah.
It goes
Yeah.
specifically to those people.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's awesome, actually. I mean, I think we'd all like to learn how to do that, or even, I mean, I think people have probably already learned something just from you saying that, but learn a method like that where we could, build our audience from our home. And then if we did decide to tour, we would just go to the places, that say, like have where massive amounts of people are interested, that you can do on a weekend. You could go there on a Saturday,
Yeah.
do a Friday night set, you could at least target where you go and know that you're going to have an audience, know that you're going to sell merch, know that people are going to show up at your show, because to me, and this happens to all of us locally, we'll go play out of town. We'll go to Houston. We'll go to Oklahoma. We'll go to Austin. We'll go whatever. And we're still going to play in front of the same 20, 30 people, or not the same, but the same amount of people. But yet now we spent the money to go out there. We spent gas, hotel, time to play in front of the same amount of people we were already playing in front of if we'd have just gone 20 miles down the road.
Yeah, and I think you and I had this conversation after one of these Metal Bros a couple of weeks ago or so, and I mentioned a strategy that I had suggested to Mark Lopes, who sings for Ross the Boss,
Right.
because he's in the New England area. And in New England, you're in Texas. You can drive 11 hours and still be in Texas. So Texas is like its own country. But Mark Lopes is in New England. You drive 20 minutes and you're in another state. If you drive 5 hours from where he is in like the Boston area, dude, you're in Montreal.
Right. Right.
Seriously, you're in Montreal. 3 hours and you're in New York City.
Yeah.
So I told him, I said, what I would do if I were you, I would use the kind of targeting that we were just talking about. Find people who are interested in similar bands that your band is. So target them, put out some music videos, get them to start following your Facebook page. Once they do, you start publishing content, posting content on a regular basis, engaging with those fans, giving them new music, talking to them, rapping with them, engaging with them, and they become, followers. They become dedicated. They get serious about your band. And then what you do is see which areas, but just target all of your ads for within an 8-hour driving distance from where you are. Target your ads, because you can do that with Facebook. Just all the zip codes within 8 hours of your location. And so all of your ads promoting your band are targeted in this region. And then you see which hotspots start to become the most paramount. So you say, hey, we got a lot of people in Toronto. Got a lot of people in Jersey. A lot of people in New York City. A lot of people in Philly. A lot of people in, Vermont or whatever. And so you see these pockets, and then you pour a little more advertising dollars, not a lot, in these areas where it seems to be building up. So once you got like a dozen major cities in which you've got 2,000 or 3,000, 5,000 fans in each one, then you have a bargaining chip. When you go to some of the medium level venues, you know what I mean? Smaller venues that can hold maybe 300 people, 250, something like that. You can go to those venues and you can tell them, listen, we're coming to town. We have a built-in fan base. So you can then draw out people from those particular locales. So, and that's almost kind of what Twisted Sister did. They didn't have social media to do that. But Twisted Sister was just burning up that tri-state area for the longest time, running all those bars from L'Amour's, all this just kept winding throughout that area until they eventually got signed. In this, you're not worried about trying to get signed to a label. What you're doing is you're building up your own audience in all of these places, and then the promoters and the bar owners or the venue owners realize, book this band. Because they always bring out a turnout by themselves. They don't need anybody else. They bring them out by themselves because the band has already done the marketing. So now your profitability is that much more. And because you only focus in an 8-hour driving distance area, you're able to do those shows on the weekend so nobody has to lose a day job.
Right.
So you're getting the best of all worlds.
And I guarantee you there's almost zero bands who think that way or are doing anything like that, or may not, or even aware that that is one way of
Yeah.
pushing yourself, or getting yourself out there, is just starting close to home, man.
Right. Right. So utilizing the power of technology, but like you said, they're not aware of these things, so they're going to
Hmm.
say it's impossible.
Right.
You know what I mean? They're going to say it's dead. The music scene is dead, and they're just going to, they quit too easy. And if you quit
Yeah.
too easy, sorry, but you deserve to lose.
Yeah.
I don't care how
Yeah.
talented you are. I don't care. You don't deserve everybody to listen to your music just because you're really good. I'm sorry, it's just not the way the world works. You have to work your ass
Right.
off.
You're right. There are plenty of bands that have proven that over the decades. There are tons of mediocre bands out there who are huge.
Yeah, because they work hard,
Yeah.
right? I mean, look at just the promotion in L.A. I remember when I went to visit you back in '86, and just walking on that Sunset Strip,
Oh yeah.
and so many more people in the street than there was in the bars.
Yeah.
But you can't you can't miss how many posters and flyers are stapled on top of each other in stacks. They
Oh
were
yeah.
everywhere. You
Oh
could
yeah.
walk
And
5 feet without somebody giving you something.
no, and that was the thing too, is you would always cover up. Some band would put their thing on the telephone pole or whatever, and then some other band would come along and put theirs right over the top of it.
Yeah,
5 minutes later.
yeah. So
Yeah,
that's promotion.
there's a band around here called Whiskey Dick. Just two dudes play acoustic guitar who do it for a living. One way that helps a lot. There's not a lot of equipment. There's not a band. There's not any roadies. There's anything. But these dudes have been doing this. I've lived here since 2007. They've been doing this the whole time. They are some of the hardest working dudes. They tour. They will drive. They will tour the country. They will go overseas and play. And there's one of the few dudes I know that are playing original music that have been doing it since at least '07. And they were probably doing it longer than that. I know they just had I don't remember what anniversary they just celebrated. But, and I don't know how they do their advertising or however they do it, but those guys have been doing it for a living. And I always tell them, man, you two are two of the hardest working dudes I know. And they're not a metal band. I don't even know what you call Whiskey Dick. They're kind of a country rock, drunk as hell.
Yeah.
Just, I don't know. They're a trip, but they're cool. They're good dudes too, man.
Yeah.
Working their balls off, though.
The
Driving
drunkest
around in a
guys
van.
I know.
And they're drunk. They got a song called "Drunk as Hell." But other than cover bands out here, they're some of the fewest guys I know who are playing original music and still doing it, and making their little record and then going out and touring on it.
Yeah.
Other than cover bands, bands are making money still. Cover bands and tribute bands are making money.
Yeah. Well, look at Steel Panther.
Right.
I guarantee you they're making money.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they're making money.
They
were kind of like Pantera-ish in a certain way, where they kind of had a circuit set up for years that they just played over and over. L.A., Vegas, that whole little deal, doing their shtick until they finally kind of got discovered, like well after they'd been doing it for a long time. And those guys were in other bands. I mean, Satchel was in Halford.
Yeah. Did you know?
And then they kind of started doing their own. They got a new record out too.
Yeah. Steel Panther was the original metal shop.
Right.
Working for what was the entertainment company that runs Le Freak and
is it Bob's Bob, right?
No, Bob was the booking guy, but I forget what the name of it. It's something entertainment. They're in Vegas. But they own Le Freak and all that stuff in Middle Shop. But
I'm thinking of Bob Foster.
Yeah, but Steel Panther was the original metal shop.
Yeah.
Who was subservient to them. They broke away and became Steel Panther. And so the metal shop guys that we know, Shannon and Chi and John and April, they are,
yeah,
they are what Steel Panther.
They are a product. They're like the stepchildren of that original band. Yeah. The offspring.
Yeah.
They're the redheaded stepchildren of metal shop.
Yeah, and that's that's, I don't know what you call them. I've always called them shtick type bands. But I mean they're technically cover bands, but they're they're dressing up in the '80s thing, just like the Spasmatics do, and La Freak,
Yeah.
and the
Hmm.
Windbreakers,
Yeah. All right.
yacht playing the yacht rock.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, there's all of these things you have to do now in order to make money, even locally, as a band.
Yeah. Well, and in that regard, not much has changed in Texas, and was the original reason I moved out of here in the first place,
Yeah,
was because everyone was just a cover band. All the original bands were just kind of underground playing shitholes, and the cover bands were making all the money and playing all the gigs, and that's still kind of what's going on around here.
yeah,
Except now we've added tribute bands to those bands that were playing, there would be cover bands playing Ozzy and doing all this stuff, and now it's tribute bands to Ozzy,
yeah, yeah,
Metallica, and all all the big wigs, and they're raking in the cash and bringing in the crowds.
yeah, yeah. So live music, and I'm just speaking specifically of metal, but it's it's a questionable future. I'm still optimistic because I believe that, especially in metal, that the musicians are still doing it for the love of the game.
Yeah,
They would
for
like
sure.
to make money. They would like to have these things, but they can't not play.
Right.
And if they
Yeah.
had a semi full room,
Hmm.
you know, that's enough
Which,
to excite them and keep them going.
well, that is the case. Speaking from a 55-year-old metalhead who's still out there doing it,
Yeah,
putting out new songs, and you know, we're looking for a new drummer. Try finding new musicians who still want to do this
yeah,
at this age and want
yeah,
to dedicate their time, and practice once, twice a week, play a show every month or two, or sometimes 2 or 3 shows in a month. That's a tough sell these days.
yeah.
And if you do find one, it's the guys who are already in 2 or 3 bands.
Right.
Everybody who's auditioning or even interested is already in 2 or 3 bands. Some half of them are tribute bands, because they know, well, if I play in that band and I want to make money doing this, I got to play in this other band,
Yeah.
because Iron Jaw's not going to make that much money going out and playing at the Rail Club at 9 o'clock.
Yeah. So I still have hopes for it, obviously, because
Hmm.
especially with heavy metal, because such an art related form of music. It's not easy to play. It's not easy to write.
Yeah.
And so there's the competition between players. All of these things that help to spur musicians on to work hard, but it's not enough to hang your hat on. So
Yeah. It's a weird time too, because you've got the guys who are playing more old school stuff like we are, and then and you've got us, and you've got that crowd, and that crowd doesn't like stay out late anymore, and they'll go out, but they're not staying out till 2 o'clock in the morning.
yeah,
They're out for a good 2 or 3 hours, and they're ready to go. They're done midnight, whatever. What used to be called the headliner around here is now called the deadliner, because you don't want that 12 o'clock spot,
yeah,
because people are either going to be leaving while you're playing or before you even play.
right,
And especially if things are running behind. And then you've got a new generation. Where are they playing? You know,
yeah,
what venues are they playing that anybody gives a shit about? Because there's only so many metal bars, and the metal bars don't really seem to be playing any new generation of guys coming up playing any metal. So I don't even know, where does it exist? Because there's obviously a younger crowd that likes, the emo and the hardcore and the whatever the hell they're called anymore. Those people are still out there playing,
yeah,
and playing festivals. You go to festival, and I mean, I haven't heard of half the bands,
all right,
and don't give a shit about half the bands,
right,
because they're younger bands and they're doing their thing, and it's a different kind of metal. I'm glad they're playing metal, but it's just not our kind of metal that we
right,
give a shit about. I respect that they're doing it. I'm glad somebody's doing it. Of course they're going to change it. It's not going to be you know, it's not, there's only going to be so many young kids who'll come out and play kind of an old school kind of thrash. There are those kids, But as far as metal has just changed and the audience has changed, but where the hell are they? Where are they playing?
Yeah.
Especially locally, where are they cutting their teeth,
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing is we talked about that before. Where is the minor leagues? Where do they
Right.
go to develop themselves as players? Yeah, it's tough.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough. But you can, in another sense, you can say, like I work with an organization where the founder was a scholar, and he wrote 30 plus books and crap tons of articles and things, and he has a school of thought, and you know yeah, you want some young newbies to kind of step in and push the project forward, but still the best selling stuff is going to be his stuff, and he's been dead for 20 something years.
Right.
So it's like, okay, well, somebody can make a living just selling the old stuff. Just
Right.
And so it doesn't mean the music goes away necessarily, but you don't have uh, a lot of newbies coming up. Now, going back to where we started with this, what about Europe? Europe may be a totally
Right.
different animal.
Yeah. Yeah. Europe would be a totally different animal. And I think that was Anthrax's point was like they couldn't even afford to go over there. The expense was 3 times what they originally were quoted, when they first started setting it up. By the time they started to actually get it really off the ground and get it hooked up, because they'd done their American tour, they're ready to go. It was like it wasn't even possible.
Yeah.
Completely not affordable. And that's what Devin Townsend's saying too. He was even saying like, the venues have disappeared. 50% of the venues have disappeared. And I don't know if he's probably talking more American than he is European.
Right.
He's probably talking about the cost of going over to Europe, but as far as playing in America, and then like he said, what's the roadie going to do? It's kind of like we asked, I don't know if it's me and you that were talking about it. We asked like, where did all these people go? Why are all these restaurants hiring people? Why is service so shitty and everyone's understaffed? Is because, well, the restaurants shut down and these people went and found regular jobs doing other things.
Right.
And so they're not interested in the, restaurant business any longer.
Right.
Same thing with these roadies, they can't afford to take 2 years off. They end up going and getting regular jobs or moving on with their lives or doing something else or having to charge so much in order to do it that the band can't afford their own tech anymore, which is something I never thought about until I saw him say that. I hadn't even thought about that end of it,
Yeah.
paying your roadies and your techs and all that stuff. And, what have they been doing during the downtime?
Right. Tune your own guitars, you lazy bastard.
Yeah, God damn it. We do it. Why can't you do it?
Exactly. Every other band does it.
Mm-hmm.
Where are we going to find a guitar tech? It's over. Okay. Yeah, but
yeah, it's a weird time.
yeah.
I would love to see though that format I was talking about earlier, come into play where, and maybe this will be the final thing that kind of puts it there where bands, have their home base, they have everything set up to record and they can play live shows and do it yourself, and put it out there and people will pay the $5-10 to watch you.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
Let's see. Sandy mentioned crematorium with a question mark. I'm not sure what she was referring to. Maybe just one of the bands that's doing well or something.
Yeah.
Rick Perry says Frozen Soul is a local death metal band that draws big.
He's
crowds.
right. I was just about to mention them. Speaking of, they are doing really well with it's death metal, and they've got a younger crowd, and they're huge around here. They're packing the place.
Really?
Yeah.
Sandy says Funeral Dirge. I know that's a song, but I don't know if that's a band.
I'm sure everyone's talking about bands that are probably doing fairly well still.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's just not. We're talking about what it's going to take to sustain an industry. It's going to come down to a lot more activity that's happening. Mary said they did the Metallica drive-in show here. I'm not sure what that is, but yeah. So that's what what we face in heavy metal. And I'm sure it's affecting other genres
I'm
of
sure it
music.
is.
Nobody's making what they once were, and the challenge is now for new artists to where nowadays, man, I mean, somebody's really excited about really more the vanity metrics. How many streams did I get on Spotify, and how many likes and shares on an Instagram or TikTok or
Right.
what have you. But
Yeah.
whether that can be monetized is a whole nother discussion.
Right. Well, I mean, it can for certain people. Some people are YouTube stars or influencers and all that kind of stuff. But, even that's, probably rare where somebody's making full living. Individual, maybe harder for a band. You got just an individual who can do their own thing and interact with people versus a band. But yeah, I don't know. You think with the way technology works and we're doing things like this, that something like that would come. You think the record industry or somebody would have come up with a format, of course, then they would take a piece of the pie and you wouldn't make shit for it.
Right.
So you kind of got to figure this stuff out on your own. I mean, like you said, there are ways to target specific areas and target specific kinds of people who just want to hear your little trip, and don't worry about everybody else. Don't worry about handing out your pizza flyer to the person who doesn't even listen to metal.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like in Leah's instance, she is selling the actual physical music. She is selling CDs. She's selling vinyl.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Vinyl's made a big comeback.
So she's selling that, but then she's also selling the merchandise. Right. So that T-shirts and it's all this stuff and mugs and all kinds of different things that you can now sell. And that's something like I served as a coach in her program. So I taught a lot of the students, work with a lot of them one-on-one. I co-hosted her podcast. So, excuse me, I'm very versed in these things, and I've been in marketing longer than she has. So everything that she's doing this is not unique. This is tried and true direct marketing principles that she's applying.
Right.
But, I would often have these one-on-ones with a lot of these bands and a lot of these musicians, and I would tell them, you're going to have to do more than try and sell a CD. You're going to have to sell other things. And for them, that was just like, what? How in the hell? If I'm not going out to a show, how am I going to sell T-shirts? How am I going to sell anything? So, well, you're going to do it online, obviously. But what you're going to have to start doing is thinking out of the box again. And so they're thinking, all right, so I'm selling shirts with my album cover on it. Is that what I'm doing? And I would tell them, I said, no. In fact, I'd prefer you not put your album cover on it. I'd say search your lyrics. Find lines from songs, you know what I mean, that are maybe inspirational or funny or whatever, and put those on a shirt. Because like as you know, Metal Motivation sells merchandise. I'm wearing it, right?
Right.
But nothing that I sell has anything to do with me. I don't sell a CJ t-shirt. I don't sell really a Metal Motivation kind of t-shirt. I'm selling like eat, drink, and be metal.
Yeah. You're selling a lifestyle.
I'm selling a lifestyle, an attitude, a culture. So the shirt says something about the person wearing it. It's not a person wearing a shirt that says something about me, CJ. It's somebody wearing a shirt that says something about them, their love for heavy metal, their love for the metal lifestyle, their love for the metal attitude. So is it Metal Motivation? Well, indirectly, yes. So like in Leah's case, she's addressing that, it's that very, Celtic and New Agey and Gothic and Game of Thrones, Hobbit kind of stuff, that kind of vibe.
Right.
So there's a whole bunch of stuff she's got. She's got stuff look like with Celtic designs and, and all the stuff she'll post on her Facebook page will be, whether it be a funny thing about the hobbits or something else that's really, inspirational or a a Celtic mystics quote, but anything that feeds into that culture keeps her fans engaged with her brand, with her musical brand. It's not the music specifically. She's addressing the culture that surrounds the music.
Right.
And that keeps people engaged. It's the culture itself. And so then you have so many other options as far as, things that you can, technically sell. So like, here's one of my things, metal ruled and coffee fueled. So it's easy for me to sell that because it's all ties into the Metal Motivation brand. It's something I wrote. It's something I said. I drink coffee, metal ruled and coffee fueled, right? So I'll have this as a mug. I'll have this as one of those 30-ounce tumblers, that kind of thing. So you can do any number of things to try and monetize something without having to get on a tour bus and go on the road.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there is a different way, and there's a way that people need to adapt to a more modern way, given the technical situation we're in these days and the economic situation we're in, the pandemic type situations we may find ourselves in and out of. Who knows? I mean, I noticed a lot of bands, even big bands now, all sell, rappers do it too, all have some kind of drink or coffee or, booze. I mean, I've got a Megadeth beer, a Motorhead beer, an Aussie wine, a Pantera beer sitting over here, cans that I've drank and saved. And Lamb of God has a whiskey. Slipknot has a whiskey.
Right.
Metallica has a whiskey. Metallica has cigars. Motley Crue has a coffee. Rappers have all kinds of shit. Rappers are always doing like energy drinks and shit.
Right.
Remember back in the day when the actresses would all have like a perfume or whatever. That's the new perfume.
Right.
Whiskey and shit. And those are bands, they're doing well, but even they have other ventures that they're a part of.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's just a whiskey bottle with their name on it. They had nothing to do with the way it probably was made or anything. Death has a new 4-pack of beer. The band Death.
Really?
And I went on the website to check it out, and I never knew this. There was on there when they were all sold out was a Black Sabbath Iron Man beer. Who else was there? Another Motorhead beer that was sold out. Somebody else, I forget who it was, but there was like 3 or 4 other. Like I had no idea Black Sabbath ever had a beer.
Right.
Iron Maiden's got a beer. All these alcoholics in heavy metal.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I was going to just see if I can play a little bit of Leah's stuff. Kind of give people an idea. Can you hear that? Anyway, I think you get the idea. So, and she's got, several albums out. She even did one song with what's his name?
Eric from Testament.
Yeah, Eric from
Yeah.
Testament. So it's all professional. You know, she works with musicians around the world. Nobody's local. And she's a homeschool mother of 5 kids. And what she recently did this past couple of years is she started a what she calls a sister brand to her music called Mythology Candles.
Yeah.
And so Mythology Candles then is simple candles.
Yeah.
She started it during the pandemic. But it's all the theme, again, based on that same culture. And that company does over $1 million in sales.
And she was making 6 figures off of her music.
She was making 6 figures off of her music. She did 7 figures with her music marketing thing that I helped her with.
Right.
And then she did 7 figures, and will probably go more than that with the candle company.
So there is definitely a way to do this.
There's a way to do this, yeah.
Because you see an ad or you see someone her come out and say, I made 6 figures doing this, and you always think, oh, that's bullshit. Because everyone always says that. You see the ads on YouTube all the time when you're watching anything. I'm making 6 figures doing real estate, or might learn my method, and you always think, you just assume that it's bullshit.
Yeah.
Until I know somebody who knows somebody who can verify it for me. Because I've asked CJ on more than one occasion in the past. I've asked you more than once just to make sure. Dude, does she really make you? Like, you damn straight she does, bro.
I remember she sent me the screenshot from her phone the day they broke $1 million in the candle business. So she hadn't even published that yet. It wasn't a public thing. She just texted it to me and just said, look what just happened.
And now is she putting out a course to explain how she did that?
Yeah, now she's putting out a course that explains how she does the e-commerce end of things. So, for example, like I showed you the mug that says metal ruled and coffee fueled. So my other business is the one I do with Pat Mack, the Delta Force guy. And so that's called the University of Badassery. And then we do a coaching squad that has several hundred members. They all pay a membership fee. So that's monetized.
Yeah.
But we've been in talks now for over a year with a coffee company, which you know about, called Invader Coffee. And Invader has been a sponsor of our podcast for a long time. They're talking about us doing something else with them, more of a partnership. However, the owner of Invader has already agreed to, when I'm ready, to do a Metal Motivation brand of coffee. Now, I know everybody, what they just do is they just slap their label on their coffee, right? On whatever coffee. They don't give a damn what it is. This coffee is the best coffee. I mean, this guy is serious as a heart. He's like a mad scientist when it comes to coffee. So it's really, really exceptional coffee. So I would have behind me, that kind of credibility as far as the actual coffee goes, but it would be specifically for the metal crowd. So then I can promote, this coffee mug, metal ruled and coffee fueled shirts with this particular coffee brand. You can buy them together as a package.
Right.
But it's just all part of still the Metal Motivation brand, which is an attitude, lifestyle, culture, etc. So there are ways to monetize things. Just because you don't know what those are doesn't mean they don't exist. I've always said this in Metal Motivation. The less you understand about the way things are achieved, the more you think it's magic or fate that it happens for somebody else. You just don't know.
Amen to that.
But for a lot of what happens with a lot of, especially with metal bands, is the community. They're all heart, but they're not necessarily the savviest people in terms of business or marketing or that type of. They all got jobs. They all work hard. You know what I mean? They when they pay their money for a ticket and a few beers at a show, it's serious to them, man. You know what I mean? That's a chunk of change out of their budget that they don't fuck around with, man. So, but folks like that are not going to be aware of what the other options are. And so this is where, again, having a prosperity mentality comes in. Because a lot of people have a poverty mentality. They just think it's always lack. It's not for me. Or if I do make something, it's taking from somebody else. So they have guilt and they don't think they deserve it and etc. So they got all of this mental shit that's going on that's prohibiting them from saying, no. There's plenty to go around. There's plenty to go around. I just got to figure out how I need to. And it's not talking about greed. People think, well, dude, you're getting into greed. I'm not getting into greed. Because if you're so noble, motherfucker, then surely if you had all the money, you'd be doing great things with it. So let's get you all the money.
Right.
Right? Just because you want to go do those things doesn't mean you're greedy. I'm not looking for all the money in the world. I'm certainly looking for doing things better. Well, somebody say, well, money doesn't make you happy. Okay, money doesn't make you happy, but it'll make you happier. You know, it always helps. And it's that way you can be resourceful. That way you can have the wherewithal to invest more in your, invest it more in your light show, invest it more in your amps, invest it more in taking time to do the next album, whatever it is you got to do. But you can figure out ways to monetize it. And it doesn't necessarily have to be through the music directly. Like Leah could say, all right, I'm not going to monetize my music anymore. I make enough with the candle company. I'm just going to do the music for fun.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is I'll tell people, you know, the definition of calling. And this is when it gets into music, we're talking about a calling in life. Musicians know what it means because they're compelled to play.
Absolutely.
They're compelled to play. And so a calling you can define as the most important thing that you can do with your gifts, talents, abilities, in which you are the most difficult to replace. Right? So
right on the money.
So like we talked about the guys in Death Angel, right? So like Mark sings for Death Angel. He's a bartender. Which one is Mark harder to replace? As a bartender or singer of Death Angel?
Yeah. Obviously,
right. He's harder to replace as the singer of Death Angel,
the singing bartender.
Right. So which one is his calling? It's not the bartending job, because they can get another bartender. Hard to replace him as the lead singer of Death Angel.
Yeah.
Look at Pantera.
Yeah.
How hard is Dime to replace? Very hard. How hard is Eddie Van Halen to replace? Very hard. So whatever you can do, which involves your gifts, talents, and abilities, the things that you're passionate and good at, in which you are the most difficult to replace, is your calling. However, just because that's your calling doesn't mean people are going to pay you to do your calling.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So what do you do? What do you do if you have a calling that people won't pay you to do? You do your calling because it's your sacred duty. You have to. And so even if you have to work another job to pay for calling, you do that. You do whatever you have to do. You can never stop the calling. You can never stop putting your hand to the plow. And so that's how they, like in the ancient, they would talk about like calling as putting your hand to the plow, plowing. Don't ever take your hands off the plow. So like in ancient Israel, they had this weird law where every 7 years they would have this Sabbath year.
Right.
Every 7 days a metalhead takes a black Sabbath. So every 7 years they would have a Sabbath year where nobody could work. They'd have a COVID lockdown for a year. Nobody could work, but they would be saving up all their seed and food for the 6 years before. So they would have this, just like their 7-day rest, they would have the 7-year rest. But you're not just resting. They would be told to evaluate the previous 6 years of plowing. So during that rest period, you're supposed to, like during Sunday when you're resting from the evaluate. How did the last 6 days go? Is that profitable? Am I wasting time on certain things? Am I wasting time on certain people? Should I fire somebody? Should I stop doing this bullshit? Should I stop taking this road to work? Am I paying too much in gas? You evaluate, and then you make adjustments for the next 6 days, and then you'll evaluate again. So they would evaluate the plowing based on how the one field was fruitful for the previous 6 years. And if that field sucked, guess what they could do? Plow another field.
Plow elsewhere.
Yeah, exactly. Plow
Imagine that. Imagine that, though, dude. 6 years on, a whole year off. You got your shit together for those 6 years, and you had to.
Mm-hmm.
And you had that whole year to like reevaluate, tweak some shit that went wrong. If shit didn't really go wrong, you're gonna have one hell of a fucking party for a year. Have a damn good time and enjoy life. Enjoy those 6 years and get ready for the next, because those next 6 years are gonna suck balls. But that fucking when that year comes around, you know, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing is that what notice what's happening is just because the last 6 years wasn't a fruitful field for you, doesn't mean you stop plowing.
Right.
You have to always plow, but you can always change fields.
Right.
You can always change jobs.
Right.
But you can't stop working. You know what I mean? So you can always change bands. You can change musical styles. You can do whatever you want to do. You can't stop playing music because that's your calling. Calling is your plowing. You can find different fields. Evaluate how the last 6 years with this, the last year, the last whatever with this band went. You can always reevaluate and say, you know what, that wasn't profitable for me. And you've done this yourself.
Yeah.
I'm going to plow elsewhere, but I'm not going to stop playing. Right? So that's the calling. You put that hand to the plow. You don't take that hand off the plow. You keep plowing. You keep playing music because that's your sacred duty. It doesn't matter what the industry's doing. Doesn't matter what the local scene is like. Doesn't matter what other people think. Doesn't matter whether somebody pays you a dime for it. If you're wired and gifted with a love of music and practice and that you've played and dedicated yourself your whole life, you don't stop doing that.
Yeah.
Period.
I can guarantee you every one of the guys, and I can almost guarantee you this was true because I believe we've had this conversation in Iron Jaw before Iron Jaw got together. That the last band, whatever band that was probably Warlock for half of those guys, was their last band. Yeah. They decided we weren't going to do it anymore. I was just going to hang it up. I'm going to retire, do whatever solo projects or do whatever you wanted to do. And probably most of those guys wouldn't have done anything. You know, like a Rick Perry would probably still be writing some music or doing something on his own. Right. You know, it was their last band, but they took the year off and they got back to plowing, bro.
Got back to plowing.
Got back to plowing and hired my ass.
That's right. But it's a pattern. It's something to follow. And see, to me, that's, that was always the purpose of Metal Motivation. The purpose of Metal Motivation was to give people the metalosophy tools to think about the complicated problems of life, whether work, like we're talking about, art, relationships, money, health, etc. Right. All of these important areas of life, how to have the tools to manage those things, to find your way. It's not just about motivational quotes, for God's sake. I mean, those are cool. I'll post them, but you can't get through life that way. So in order to break through what we're facing in the music industry now, for musicians I'm speaking of, it's going to take some thought. It's going to take some creativity. It's going to take, pulling yourself inside and out, racking your brain in order to find solutions to how you don't have to fix the music industry. You just have to fix the music industry for you.
Right.
And determine, okay, listen, what does my next season look like? Being realistic, looking at my band, our abilities, our opportunities, what our scene looks like. What does the next year potentially look like if we really busted our ass in work and came up with some creative ways to promote this band? What could it potentially look like? Paint that fucking picture. Make it clear as a bell in your mind. See nothing else. See nothing negative. Don't see bleakness. Don't see any of it. You say, well, you're lying to yourself. No, you're not lying to yourself. That is the resident potential. You've got to believe. You have to. Otherwise, you won't pay the price. You won't push through. You won't, because there's going to be nothing but resistance. There's going to be nothing but obstacles. You're dealing with it's like dealing with people in the music industry is like dealing with people in the construction industry.
Right. Well,
There's no
and like
scruples.
when
They're
you got
drunk.
a Leah, you can, there's proof that someone can do this, and that method can be duplicated and used if she's doing it.
Right.
And like I said, she may be one of the richest musicians you've never heard of.
Exactly.
Exactly. So, and just because she found her little niche out there and she knows how to target that, and she proved it again in another business, it can be done.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing of what they call the super fan dynamic.
Yeah.
Right. So if you have 1,000 super fans, a super fan is people who will buy anything you sell.
Right.
Somebody just loves your shit, and they'll just you come up with a new shirt, CD, whatever, they're buying it. They're going to be at your show. 1,000 super fans. If 1,000 super fans will spend $100 with you over a year, that's 6 figures.
Yeah. That's if you just have 1,000. Imagine if you have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5.
Yeah. So, and you say, well, can I get 1,000 super fans in my area? Leah doesn't.
Yeah.
They're all over the world.
Yeah, yeah.
So let's take an Iron Jaw, for example. Iron Jaw plays power metal. You know how many rabid power metal fans there are all over the world? I'd be targeting the hell out of Europe. So you can then say, okay, can I find 1,000 super fans of Iron Jaw all over the world? Absolutely you can. Because they're all on social media.
Yeah.
If they're all on social media, then it's a contained audience. See, the internet before social media was ubiquitous.
Yeah.
So if, for example, it's like having a virus like the flu or COVID and standing in the middle of Times Square full of people passing by. How many people are you going to infect? Not many. But then we'll take that same sick person and put them on a commercial airliner where every seat is filled. How many people are going to get sick? A lot. Why? Because the people on the airliner are contained. Before social media, the internet was just one big mass of just individuals. But social media made them contained. That's why we describe popular videos as what? Going viral. Viral, meaning like a virus. It spreads from person to person. Before social media, information on the internet was searched for. After social media, information is shared. It is social media. Media means broadcast. Mainstream media, alternative media. Social media is broadcasting socially, broadcasting from person to person. Most of your news you get now, you get from somebody sharing a link. So it's from person to social broadcasting. So if you have something that power metal and one power metal individual likes, and he or she is passionate about it, he's going to spread that virally to other people in this contained medium. And that's how it spreads. What your job is to give people something to share, something to spread. You have to have a virus. So if people like your music, then it's naturally going to grow. So long as you're putting into Facebook's very powerful ad manager other things that the ideal person who would listen to your music also follows. Right? Try to paint what's what we call an avatar, not the band, an avatar, meaning give a description of what Iron Jaw's ideal superfan would be like. How old are they? Where do they live? What do they read? What pages do they follow? What bands do they like? What books do they read? What movies are their favorites? Maybe they've seen the Lemmy documentary, the Iron Maiden documentary, the this documentary. Maybe they follow Download. Maybe they follow Wacken. They follow Judas Priest. They follow Blind Guardian, right?
Right.
They follow
Sure.
all of these things. So you're starting to narrow down out of this mass of people that are on Facebook. You're just picking out the people who are totally into the power metal stuff. And then you target them with your music video. And those people go, first of all, they'll say, how in the hell does Facebook know I want to see this?
Yeah.
Right? Because you're targeting them. And then they click the play button and they're like, holy shit, check out this Iron Jaw. And so then they go into the groups that they are part of and they share the video and they send it to friends. And then they say, okay, well, I'm going to follow Iron Jaw. But then Iron Jaw just doesn't post music videos. Iron Jaw posts all kinds of stuff that have to do with the power metal culture. Even if it's Texas specific. Because the guy in Germany wants to be identified with that Texas shit.
Yeah.
He likes that Cowboys from Hell vibe and the whole groove. He wants to be American. You know what I mean? So he's going to resonate with that. Right? And so you get him or her engaged. And then you just build it. And you just build it. And nobody has to live anywhere near you. And so what they end up doing is because look at what's happening right now with people who follow Metal Motivation. They're like, they're in, man.
Yeah.
I got people been following for years. They're in. They're a part of the tribe, bro. They're a part of the tribe. Because why? Because CJ shows up every day with a quote, with a video, with something that encourages, that builds up, that gets them into that eat, drink, and be metal, metal up, motivated by metal, my blood type is metal attitude. And so they're like, dude, I'm in. So then it's not hard for me to say, hey, wear your attitude and support my metal mission. They're like, right on, bro. Because I created thousands and thousands of small debts. Small debts, small obligations. They feel like, man, I owe that brother.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm proud to wear that. Plus, but it's not. He's not proud to wear a picture of CJ on his shirt. He's supporting CJ by getting a shirt that says something about him. I'm motivated by metal. I ain't drink and be metal. And this is how you do that. But just because you can't figure that out doesn't mean the music scene is dead.
Right. I mean, it's changed, but you have to learn how to change with it. I mean, there's no choice.
Yeah.
There's no choice because the standard way of doing things in the music business doesn't exist anymore. Yeah. It's not like that anymore. It's not like you put out a record, you go on tour, you come back, you put out another record, you go on tour. There's a record company behind you. Or there might be a record company interested because they see how hard you're working and you're gaining momentum and doing all this. Yeah, it doesn't work like that anymore.
No, it doesn't. So you're basically on your own. Like the saying goes, we're on our own. Nobody's coming to save us.
Yeah.
All right. So you burned all the bridges. So what now? And like when I would work with a lot of musicians in the Savvy Musician Academy that Leah had, so many of them would say, well, how many times does that mean do I need to post on social media? Well, what do I have to do? Well, and I said, listen, if that's the way you're talking, you're doomed. I told her I would much rather have the person out there trying so hard that they're posting like 100 times a day. And I got to go in there and fucking reel them in and say, whoa, Hot Rod. That is way too much. But I appreciate the heart.
Yeah.
And say, no, let's do it, this many times a day. And then follow up with this and that sort of thing. I'd rather have that. Somebody who's just willing to be reckless abandon. Just for the hell of it. What else you got to do? What else do you have to do? Why not go crazy with your audience, your culture? Why not stand up for heavy metal, stand up for your band, stand up for you, and sell it like it's the most important thing in the world? So what I'll tell these musicians, they go, well, I don't know what I need to do. I said, I'll put it to you this way. Let's say in 7 days, you are going to go to prison forever if you don't sell $1,000 worth of merchandise or music or live event tickets in the next 7 days for your band. You've not sold anything so far, ever. You've got 7 days to sell $1,000 worth, or you're going to jail for life. What are you going to do?
Call my lawyer.
Well, you know what you're going to do? You're going to do things you wouldn't normally do. You're going to be banging on people's doors, whereas before you might have been shy to do it. You're going to be banging on people's doors. You're going to be posting more than you've ever posted. You're going to be begging people. You're going to be telling people, if I don't sell this stuff, I'm going to jail. Please help me. But guess what? You'd sell. You're finally selling now. It had nothing to do with anything else, but everything to do with you. Everything to do with your lackadaisiness, your apathy, your laziness, your saying I can't, it never works, and all the other bullshit that you tell yourself. That's why there's so few successful people. That's why there's so few champions, because that mentality is so rare. It's so easy to default to everybody's pissy ass, negative, lazy ass, justify, dress yourself up in exclusive clownery bullshit. That's why you fail. Because if the threat was there and you had only 7 days to succeed, you'd pull heaven and hell together to make that happen. So it's an issue of your will. It's an issue of what are you prepared to do. Now, you don't have to do all that, but you got to do a lot more than what you're doing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. And
good night.
I've got to go make a t-shirt. I'll be right back. I had to go make my own beer. I'll be right back.
That's right.
I had to go make an Iron Jaw beer.
That's funny.
10.5%.
Yeah, making beer is an option. But I think, but this goes for more than music. This goes for anything.
It does. It is, because that is kind of the way of the world these days, regardless of what the product is.
Right.
And lots of people do it. Lots of people do e-commerce. Lots of people making tons of money on the internet these days.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Lots of people just doing regular jobs making money from home.
Yeah.
These days.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I could, like, for example, as you know, I've got German Shepherds, right? And I got them within the last 3 years. And all of a sudden, I went from just a dog is a dog. Had them, didn't have them. No big deal. Got the German Shepherds, freaking religious experience. Now I'm like, dude, I should be getting any day now my front license plate for my truck with a picture of my 2 German Shepherds. That's how fucking extra I am now. I'm a hardcore German Shepherd guy now. But, you know, it's like somebody, if somebody just gifts you like a 69 Ferrari and you've never cared what you drove before, but now you got this Ferrari, if I come back and see you in a year, you're part of the Ferrari club. You're wearing Ferrari T-shirts. You get the magazine. You know what I mean? You got serious about that shit.
You got the silk jacket.
Right, but think about this. Well, guess what? How many German Shepherd owners are there out there?
Tons.
Yeah. So I said, okay, well, I want to narrow it down. How many people out there that own German Shepherds happen to like heavy metal music?
Everyone in Germany.
That's right. A lot of them. Right? So I could pick that narrow niche and just say, I wonder if I could get people who love Metallica, or nothing crazy, not Behemoth necessarily, but I mean, nothing crazy, just general metal. A lot of people who just love general metal and love German Shepherds. And I could sell them dog bowls with my heavy metal dog on it, and a T-shirt. My dog is metal, and a pitch, whatever, and just for 1,000 people, and get them to spend $100 a year with me, or 2,000 people spending $50 a year with me, or
500 people selling $200.
Exactly. You just go on and on and on and on. So that's just one thing I'm interested in, is just German Shepherds. You could go into coffee. You could go into any number of hobbies or whatever. And you just set this up, because The difference is that social media keeps a track of everybody's habits.
Yeah.
So whatever you follow, whatever you've purchased, that sort, they have a record of it. Not so they can. They're not spying on you having sex in the bedroom. Okay, they're not doing that. They're not interested in that. They're interested.
If they were, I'd be a millionaire.
That's right. What they're interested in is what you're spending your money and your time on, so that they can give you more. Dude, now people say they shop online. I don't shop online in the sense of I don't go to some website and say, I wonder what they have like I'm going to the mall. You know how I shop online? I don't shop online. I buy online.
Yeah.
You know why? Because I've been on this thing for so long that Facebook will put into my newsfeed. Like I just did this the other day. I spent $250 on shirts from this website. I said, oh, that shirt's cool as hell. I've sent you shit.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen like I sent like a Iron Maiden Hawaiian shirt.
I gotta show you. I'm gonna wear that shirt sometime on air.
Okay, and then I brought him a Kiss shirt just because it showed up on my newsfeed, and I said, "Look at that! It's like the Kiss Alive album on the whole shirt."
Yeah,
and
it was awesome.
So I wasn't gonna get it, so I bought it and had it shipped to Todd.
And I had no idea. I was like, what the fuck is this? It had nobody's name on it, nothing. I literally thought, did we go out and drink one night, come home, and I've been looking, because I'd been looking at that shirt. I'd seen it before. And did I just say, man, buy that. I like that shirt. Just buy it. Don't even think about it. And I forgot.
Right.
I was like, where the fuck did this shirt come from? Now the Iron Maiden shirt had your name on, had Metal Motivation on it.
Right.
And I was like, dude, did you send me a fucking Hawaiian Iron Maiden shirt? You go, oh yeah, man. I was just checking shirts out, and I just, I do that sometimes, and I just sent you one. It's crazy. I wear it too. I wear it on my birthday. It was my birthday. We're going out to dinner with my parents, so I wore my Iron Maiden
Hawaiian
shirt.
But so like the other day, I spent like $250+ on shirts because I needed a bunch of long sleeve shirts anyway. Yeah, I got to take a couple trips this winter. Right. So an ad came up for a shirt. I said, that shirt is badass. So I clicked on it, and it had all kinds of stuff. And they have the sizing charts, and I keep a tape measure there just for that reason. I know my chest size, my shoulder length, so I don't have to send something back. And so I spent a bunch of money. So I don't shop online. I buy online because Facebook already knows what I want. So it keeps filling my news feed with stuff.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It happens to everybody.
That looks cool. That looks cool. That looks cool. Well, the same thing can happen for your music or your business or your whatever it is that you're promoting or selling or what have you. It's just knowing how to use the ad manager, which you're able to do. There's tons of ways to learn it. And you could build a side business right now. Everybody listening to us right now could build a side business in 2023. Every single person. Let's say you got 20 hours a week. You got 20 extra hours a week. If you turned off Hulu and Netflix, you got 20 extra hours a week. And you're going to spend that 20 hours on marketing to people who are interested in that weird, quirky thing that you're interested in that you think nobody else is interested in. It could be knitting. It could be making cookies. It could be German Shepherds. It could be anything. And then you're going to come up with simple products or a simple something that you can sell. And you're going to learn how to run Facebook ads, and you're going to have a little Facebook page, and then you're going to have your little Shopify store with just your products on. It doesn't have to be a ton of stuff. It could be 3 or 4 products. That's all you need to sell. Just get enough people in there. 3 or 4 products is plenty.
1,000 super fans, bro.
1,000 super fans spending $100 with you, or just if you take those same 1,000 super fans that are spending $20 with you a month. All right?
Yeah.
That's you can't use an extra $20,000 next year, really?
Yeah.
That's not worth it. You can't turn off the TV long enough to do that. Mm-hmm. So again, it all comes down to you. Where's your will? Where's your hunger? Are you fucking bloodthirsty or not? Because how are you going to combat recession? How are you going to combat these? That's a philosophy that I live with every day. It's never secure, ever. So
Yeah.
I'm always strengthening the ground beneath my feet. Always. Me and Mac talk about this. We talk about say yes to everything. Always creating new pipelines. It may not work out. That's all right. Just keep it going. Just keep the flow. Every person you meet, every new opportunity that you come into, say yes, see what happens, shake it around, kick it around. If it's not worth it, blow it off. If not, move on to the next thing. On to the next thing. Keep moving, keep moving, keep moving, keep moving. That's how you survive. If you just sit there and you're comfortable because you can set the temperature on your wall, and you can open a refrigerator and there's food, and you can flip on a light switch, and you can go through drive-thrus and do all that and press buttons on microwave. You're too fucking lazy, man. Luxury and ease has lulled you into laziness. You expect too much shit. And so then when things start to turn off, when the economy turns off, you are fucked. Because you thought the future was going to resemble the present, and it doesn't. It's competitive, it's ruthless, it's all of these things. But you can beat it if you're proactive, if you're intentional, if you're knowledgeable, if you're motivated. So, I don't even care anymore.
I'm over it.
I'm so over it. That's right. Well, Noel, I appreciate what you just said. Noel said, I'm too shy, though. You know what's funny about that? Too shy. Well, in other words, to put yourself out there and all this kind of. No, Noel, I want to tell you a real short story, and I really, really appreciate you saying that. Because I was coaching a couple, an older couple. They were in the 60s, and the husband is a piano player, jazz piano player, teaches piano. His wife is a jazz singer, and she teaches vocals, and that's how they make their money, teaching piano and vocals. Well, they've got some original stuff that they're doing, and they play out, in small little restaurants and venues all the time, just smooth jazz kind of thing. Really, really nice. They're really good. But when I was telling her about promoting herself on social media, I said, you've got to put yourself out there and be authentic. And she said that. She said, CJ, my problem is I'm the shyest person in the world. I can't put myself out there.
Yeah.
How do I do that? I said, simple. Put yourself out there saying you're the shyest person in the world.
Right.
Just tell everybody, every time you do something, say, hey, I'm so sorry, I'm the shyest person in the world. And guess what? People are going to have a heart for you. And everybody else who's shy as hell is going to say, I'm with you. And you've encouraged and inspired me because you're putting yourself out there. It's not a handicap that you have. It's an asset. And that was liberating for her, man.
Well, there's, as far as putting a product or something out there, you don't have to, your face doesn't even have to be attached to it.
Hell no.
Most things that you sell, that's if you're just selling yourself or you're a musician or artist or whatever, where you need to be. There's tons of stuff that, most people don't sell themselves as something they sell. They sell an item or they do whatever,
Well, that's
so
like
your face is not required.
You're like Leah's Mythology Candles is less and less about her.
Right.
It's about the culture.
Yeah.
They just want to see hobbits and shit, bro.
Right.
I'd rather see a hobbit. But like when I played that music and the image of her on the cover.
Yeah.
It's like she embodies like you could like that cover could be the cover of a Game of Thrones thing. Right. That her image she could be a character in one of the seasons. A particular queen in some particular season.
Could be the red queen, the red lady who read the fire, the pyromancer.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So she could fulfill that. So in other words, she's incarnating the big idea behind the culture. So every culture has an idea. So it's like, it's hard for people to separate metal up from me. Even though you came up with it. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
But you know what I mean? They can't separate the one from the other. So the person begins to embody or incarnate, the idea becomes flesh. And when it becomes flesh, that's really a brand. That's a strong brand. And so that's what she's done. So she embodies that. So for a lot of these, now again, the people who are spending all this money with her, 85, 90% males. Just males, just
Right.
nerdy males, that she's that
Yeah.
queen that
Yeah.
they just, it's just that fantasy queen. Not nothing illicit necessarily, but just that's the image that they have in their mind. And that's enough. Well, what does she care? You can't put character in the cash register.
Right.
Who cares what gender it is? You know what I mean?
Right.
The money's the same either way.
Most people don't know what gender they are anymore anyway.
So, anyway, you guys got a marketing seminar tonight, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
It wasn't Metal Bros.
And I thought we were going to talk about Pantera.
I thought we were going to talk about Pantera. We'll finish with Pantera. Yeah. Let me say that for next week.
Speaking of, you mentioned Behemoth earlier, and it was funny because today I saw something on Behemoth. I was trying to find videos and watch, kind of some bands that have some more haunting kind of videos, so I could just look at lighting and just the way they do it, because we're getting ready to do our Pyromancer video, and I got to hand it to Behemoth as far as merchandise. That band pushes and pushes and pushes and has new merchandise constantly. I see that dude doing videos, putting on their merchandise, wearing their merchandise, selling it, talking about it nonstop for the last couple of years. And they have a ton of stuff. I looked at their store and I was like, they just have tons of shit to sell. And he's great at pushing it, man.
Yeah. That's what it takes, man.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to be willing to do it. You don't have to be as big as Metallica or even a Behemoth. You can be, again, like we talked about Leah. It's just, it doesn't matter. The wealthiest musician you've never heard of.
Yeah.
Because I had one, because there's one people in the music industry, she said years ago, that said, they said to her, they saw the numbers, and I think they owned a label in overseas, and they said, how could this be true? We've never heard of you.
Right.
And she said,
that was my point. Yeah.
She said, that's the point.
Yeah.
Because you're still doing things the old way. You're not doing targeted niche marketing. And that's why you're suffering as a music label. But it's hard to change the old ways, man.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway.
Yeah, it's hard to change the old ways. And most people aren't even aware that they know there's another way because they see people doing it. They just have no clue. Most people just have no clue how to use the internet and social media and targeting certain keywords and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's something you have to learn.
Yeah.
It's not something you could just throw it out there and, why don't I have 1 million views on my video? I did what they said.
Yeah, I mean, I would do a lot more myself, if I had the help to do it.
Yeah.
Because for me, I've always got ideas, and because I know how to execute on ideas, it's tempting. But there's only so many hours in a day I can work. There's only so many things I can do. So I'm limited by my individuality, Right. And it's tough because, I may be studying these things, but not everybody else is. So what I'll end up doing then is I'll link myself to other people who are influencers, like a Leah.
Right.
So it's easy for me to step in and say, and to be for Leah what she needs that co-host. She needs that other person to come in here and help spotlight her. That's right. What I do with my friend Mac.
Mm-hmm.
Now, but they're profitable. But it's not what I'm doing for me. So I'm more helping. Metal Motivation is more, but even in Metal Bros, I mean, I'm talking a lot tonight, but my intention with Metal Bros is to showcase Todd a whole lot more, because he's the one who knows a lot more about the music, a lot more about the details and dimensions of it, and some of the things that I think have not been addressed under the Metal Motivation name. So, in that sense, I'll be playing that same role again. But that's only because I can look at the marketplace and say, well, because this is what they need. I know that this is what they want. They don't need another motivational series necessarily from me.
Right.
They need our perspective on, or they would be interested maybe in hearing our perspective on, stuff more music oriented,
Right.
and not just how to get over a breakup.
Right.
Listen to metal. That's how you get over it. What does your hat say, dude?
Oh, this is Edge of Insanity. Speaking of local bands, these dudes are a local band. I've been looking for an excuse to wear. He gave me a hat at one. We did a show with him a while ago. Dude named Lance Lutz. This dude is like probably has my favorite metal scream on the local scene. I hit the high note here and there, but this dude can do. He's like Painkiller, kind of. I mean, this dude is a great singer, great screamer, really good high voice. Totally cool dude. We played a few shows with him. He gave me the hat, and I knew I was going to wear it on air one of these days. I finally dug it out. So yeah, Edge of Insanity, local Dallas band, killer singer, good dude, can hit those high notes like you wouldn't believe, like totally like Painkiller level.
That's good.
And keep it going, not just hit a high note, but like sing that high. You're just like, Jesus Christ, killer singer, good dude.
But again, you are a singer of the band Iron Jaw, and hey, Rick, if you're still there, I don't know if you could post the link to your Iron Jaw's Facebook page. I don't know if he's still with us, but maybe I can find it here and post it. Iron Jaw. Just want to help promote that band in specific. Let's see. So I'll put this down in the comments. This is Todd's band, Iron Jaw.
Yeah, we're working on a new video for a song we just put out. We put it out on Thanksgiving, just the music, but we are going to do a video to it too. Kind of, it's one way of doing it. It works just as well. There you go.
So there you go on screen, Rick Perry. Rick is the guitar player, founder of Iron Jaw, and who Todd sings for. So you guys be sure to follow Iron Jaw.
Got tons of videos out right now.
Yeah. The hardest working band
in North Richland Hills.
Good.
In Clay's garage.
Exactly. Anything else you need to talk about, Todd?
I would like to talk about the music business, if you don't mind. No, I think you covered it, man. I mean, we definitely got a lesson in motivation. We got a lesson in kind of the way things are going these days. And it's a good, it even reminded me that, even when you say that, I remember this from before, the 1,000 super fans. That sticks with me.
Mm-hmm.
I'd kind of forgotten about it, but I remember you had mentioned, we had talked about this a long time ago, and you mentioned 1,000. I'm like, that sounds doable to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That sounds achievable.
Yeah.
To get a worldwide, we're talking.
Yeah.
You have to think overseas and, everywhere else in your little niche, because there's at least 1,000 people that are into what you're into, even no matter how weird it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Metal Motivation has, these are not super fans, but Metal Motivation has 134,000 plus followers on Facebook. There's probably 7,500 on YouTube. Instagram, 17,000 plus.
Mm-hmm. All over the world.
Yeah. So you can find them. They're there. Yeah. But yeah, it's a simple math thing. But you need that simple thing to kind of dispel the confusion, the clouds of confusion. You need just a single note of clarity. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right.
Well, a number like that.
Yeah.
Number like that to think about, because that's a number for six figures.
Yeah.
Not everybody needs six figures to live. Most people don't. Most people can live in half of that.
Right.
If you could just get half of that,
Right.
you know,
Right.
your
But,
band might need 6 figures for the band to live off of that, but you
Right.
personally
right.
can live anywhere between that and 6 figures and more. I mean, 6 figures is not what it used to be. You know, it really is. $1 million ain't shit anymore either. Remember when if I just had $1 million in the bank, the interest alone would make you rich for the rest of your, that don't exist. $1 million ain't shit anymore.
Yeah, I mean, let's say you built up a following of 10,000 people on Facebook, and 1,000 of those were super fans.
Yeah.
Okay, so and you turn that into that profit. Are you going to stop?
Right.
You are not going to be restrained from wanting to 10x that. Well, why not go 10 times that amount? What's stopping me? I have the resources now that I can invest in more advertising and more promotion. I know what works. I know what my fans are interested in. I know what they respond to. And that's the other thing. As you're posting content, as you're sharing things, you're getting feedback from people to see what they like and what they don't like. She says, okay, I'm not going to post that bullshit anymore. They don't like that. They seem to really respond to this, so I'm going to post more of that and get more engagement from them. They get more invested in it. It's just the compounding nature of this stuff.
Well, and Facebook, YouTube, all that has a metrics page that shows you numbers and how long people spent viewing this and do that. Plus, you can see the numbers just by likes and comments alone. You can tell.
Right. Yep. So if you fail, it's because you want to. Again, if you had that 7-day deadline before you go to prison for life, what would you do? How many times would you post? What would you write? What would you say? You know what I mean? How cutthroat would your sales copy be?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
I'm still stuck on we could work for 6 years and then take one off. We plow for 6 years and think about plowing for the next year.
Well, that's a great way to live, actually. Just say, all right, we're going to work for 6 years, and we're going to, but each year we're going to save up enough resources and money that will cover us for the year off.
Mm-hmm.
And so what they would do is they would do this but they would also party.
Oh,
I'm
sure.
They would just feast. They would feast and rest and read and be restored for 1 year. And the land would have a year to rest.
Yes. Yeah, that too.
So it's like, yeah. But it's like the lockdown should have been a Sabbath year for us.
Yeah.
We should have been used to that already.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, yeah, I got it in store. You shut down the economy for a year. I'm good, man. But we weren't because we're just set up differently. But I think there's some wisdom there, man.
For sure, man.
Whoever's saying take the year off, that's wisdom.
That's a smart motherfucker right there.
I thought the dude who said take the day off was smart. That motherfucker said take the year off.
Damn. So you work your balls off for 6 years, though.
That's my guru.
You'd have to, man. Yeah, that's
my guru.
Where's this motherfucker? Where's his book at? Shit.
Yeah, Shaka Khan.
Is it called the Bible or something? You got one of them?
That's my.
If only somebody wrote a book of that.
That's right. Oh my goodness. All right. I don't think anybody has anything here in the questions, but thanks everybody for being with us. John Scarletta, my friend, says if someone aims for nothing, they will surely hit it. It's true, man. You aim for nothing, you will definitely hit it. Motivation is more than just mumbo jumbo, man. It's actually what it takes to prevail. And, I hear people say, oh, I don't follow that Metal Motivation. I don't need a crutch. Well, you should be really, really successful then.
Yeah.
But they're not. They are professional naysayers, bro.
Right.
They're just professional naysayers.
How can I get a job doing that?
That's right. All right, so we will be back next Monday, same time, right here on Facebook. Not a lot of people with us, but hopefully this will continue to grow. Noel, thank you for being with us. Appreciate you too. John, Daniel, Evie, Sherry, of course. Rick, brother. Sandy, Evie, Robert, Stan, Lori, So many people with us tonight. Thank you all for Caesar, my man. Lori, yeah. So many good people with us, man. Thanks so much for joining us. Tune in to us next time. We will be here with Metal Bros. Todd Pack. Thank you. Stay on, Todd. I'll talk to you for a second before we go. But we are out in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Todd Pack, or whatever you do.
Don't suck. Metal up.